Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Animation Podcast, a weekly podcast about all things animation brought to you by Filmbook. My name is Matt Brunet, but some of you may know me as Animat from my YouTube channel, Electric Dragon 505, home of web series that are all about animation, and including Animation Look Back and Animat's Reviews. Now, if this is your first time here in the Animation Podcast, well, let me just say, the title will go and explain everything for you, but specifically, though, this will look into the latest news that happened this week. So, first and foremost, in this episode, I'll be looking into the brand new show by regular show creator J.G. Quintel. Then afterwards, we will be honoring Andrea Romano as she is retiring from her work in voice acting, or directing. Then afterwards, we will be looking into an animated short that is pretty much going viral on the internet. Then afterwards, we will be looking into a spin-off of the Lego Movie in which they got a brand new director, or like just someone that they're going to help. And finally, we're going to end things off with Animat's Pick of the Week. Now, if you want to check out more episodes of the Animation Podcast, then all you have to do is head on down to Filmbook, that is film-book.com, by searching the Animation Podcast. And you can also email us at podcast@filmbook.com with the Animation Podcast in the subject line. However, now, there's just one more thing about this episode that I just want to mention that is actually a little bit special. We actually have a special guest with us. This was something that I am meant to do a little while ago, but I'm finally glad I'm able to do this right now. Now, this is actually a pretty good buddy of mine. He actually is an animation expert himself. He has his own YouTube channel where he does animated film reviews, where he does analysis, he does some art stuff, and so much more. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce to you from Cartoon Palooza, ladies and gentlemen, Joey Tedesco. Joey, what is up, my man?
Hey, how you doing? I'm doing pretty good, man. Thanks for having me on board. But there's one thing I want to bring up.
Yep.
So, last week there was an animated movie that came out that I think a lot of people were looking forward to talk about. And a movie that I saw myself that I was looking forward to, and given my love for Sony Pictures Animation, what's the best way I could say this? You get a hall pass on this one, because this movie sucks.
Yeah,
you get a hall pass for the Emoji Movie.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like, my god, it's just, that was an entire mess. Just, period.
Yeah.
Just the whole thing, ever since the dawn of its creation, it just really went downhill. But we're gonna go, we're gonna go a little bit later into that, though, into at least one part of the subject. But first and foremost, let us talk about a brand new TV show by regular show creator J.G. Quintel. And let me just ask you first, Joey, have you ever seen Regular Show?
Oh, absolutely. One of the shows to really bring back Cartoon Network out of, a slight slump. Not the biggest slump ever, but it was a show with Adventure Time, Regular Show. As a show, I enjoyed a lot, and, contradictory that it was called Regular Show, because a lot of crazy stuff happened on that show. And, really enjoyed it to the end. Watched all 8 seasons. Very fast to watch, too. Very easy to binge.
All right, cool. Well, apparently, the show's creator, J.G. Quintel, he is actually going to create a brand new series right now. But this time is going to be a little bit more for adults. And interestingly enough, they even mentioned that it's going to be for our age group. They said that it will be relatable to 20-somethings to going to 30-somethings. And this is a brand new animated series for adults called Close Enough. And the description of it, apparently it says that it is a surreal comedy about a family growing up without getting old. And they even provided, TBS, which is going to air it there, they put up a sneak peek of how the show is going to go. And I would say the best way to describe it is that it's basically this sitcom where you have this family, a guy and a girl, and they have their own kid, while they also have some roommates where you got a bearded guy, and you also got this girl, well, I guess she's more like the trending girl wearing a pink shirt. Well, at the same time, you also got other characters, like you got this old African-American woman, and I'm guessing, like, you got this gay guy with a mullet.
Yeah.
Like they even like I remember like they even mentioned like he was trying to do like he was trying to do a scrapbook for his boyfriend, and even on the picture itself, it looks like you got a whole bunch of surreal characters. Like from what I see, you got this you got a Viking in a box, you got a jellyfishes with hats, you got a giant bunny on the side, and you also got like this
typical regular show humor.
Yeah, you got a very pompous ghost. And
yeah,
honestly, just I just gotta mention right now that just looking throughout this trailer and after doing like a whole bunch of research on the regular show and J.G. Quintel for Animation Look Back Cartoon Network, I gotta say, this really does seem like the show that he wanted to make. This really does feel like J.G. Quintel, considering that, like, when you know the guy, he is someone who's basically a college student that could never grow up. Like, his mindset is always being a college student, and just by looking at this, like, this is really the, like, you can definitely feel like this is a show that he wanted to make now with no limitations. Now he is allowed to do the adult stuff. What did you think?
The monster has been released. The Kraken has been released.
Yeah, pretty much.
I agree with you so much there. And the funny thing is that you hit the nail on the head. It was one of the things I wrote down after I saw that sneak preview, was that it's closer to the tone of the original shorts. He came out with the hand-drawn short 2 a.m. in the p.m., and it's very much a stoner comedy. And what is this show? I mean, in all fairness, to me, it looks like a stoner comedy. But there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you have, the Judd Apatow and Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen.
Yeah, Seth Rogen pretty much making a career out of making stoner comedies. And for me, I was looking forward to that because it was in tone to the original shorts that he made. Now, the funny thing about the regular show is that they're always held back. There's always those limitations. Like the filter was, we're gonna get party hard drinking sody pop, whereas it's like, no guys, it's beer. And what do you do? Just take the sody pop and make it a beer.
Yeah,
and
basically.
On top of all this, I think because TBS is airing this, I think now Turner Broadcasting, it's associated with Cartoon Network. I think now that they're using that sort of synergy, like MTV did in the 90s with Nickelodeon, to have the programming that would have been aired on Cartoon Network, but something that maybe on the fence between Adult Swim and Cartoon Network, and moving it to TBS. And it's within the same network, same company. It's also a Turner property. It has me thinking about other shows that they will produce that's going to go to this network.
Yeah, that is completely true, because they don't want to put all their eggs in one basket. So basically they just want to incorporate some of their show's creators and just put it in there, because with TBS they don't really have a lot. Like at the most they would have the Seth MacFarlane shows like Family Guy and American Dad, and they are trying to bring in more adult animated series onto TBS, make it a little bit like an alternative Adult Swim.
Yeah, and the funny thing about that too is that they probably saw with the success of Family Guy, and there's an audience for it, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
That if people are watching that, maybe they'll watch something like it, but Cartoon Network.
Yeah, exactly. And even at that, like they would put up shows like Family Guy and American Dad on Adult Swim anyways. So like they're pretty much going from left and right, and I wouldn't be surprised if eventually Close Enough would end up in Adult Swim just because of that Cartoon Network connection with Turner Broadcasting.
Yeah.
And also there is one little Easter egg that I actually just spotted like the first time I saw this, and this was actually when you mentioned about his earlier J.G. Quintel's earlier animated shorts about 2 in the a.m. p.m. When you look at the main guy the main guy character,
Mordecai.
It's actually the same. Yeah, it's actually the same guy from 2 in the a.m. p.m. Like the guy handing over the acid and then suddenly would turn into Mordecai while his friend would turn into Benson.
Exactly, which brings in the possibility of a shared J.G. Quintel universe. But, it's funny that you talk about the premise of the show that I didn't realize. You said that they describe it as a family that never gets old. And I think of that as like a self-aware parody of The Simpsons, whereas we know 20 to 30 years The Simpsons been on the air, this family in Springfield never grows up.
Yeah.
So I think by acknowledging that, it's also poking fun at that as well.
Yeah. Because, like, we're pretty much at the point where we know very well the formula, and, like, there are so many other people that that would end up trying to duplicate it. And, I mean, you could even argue that The Simpsons tried to imitate it a little bit by copying the formula of the Flintstones and the Jetsons.
Oh, yeah.
But with this one, it would be interesting to see if they're going with that parody route, especially, like, when it's going into this surreal territory and you see all these different creatures. But then again, it could either be like they do live in a surreal world, that, or this is just a whole bunch of their acid hallucinations or just their drug hallucinations, because you do see a lot of the characters just taking weed and taking so many different drugs. And even the trailer itself, it ended off with the main character going, it was like, it's kicking in! It's
I'm tweaking!
In!
That's funny because, you know, I always imagined that the regular show was going to end with Mordecai waking up as that character, you know, from the 2 a.m. and the p.m., you know, realizing that all the regular show was a trip. But maybe in my mind that's what it is. But
yeah, I don't think they could even get away with that in Cartoon Network. It's like he just wakes up and everybody is human again. It's like, whoa, what happened? I thought you were a raccoon. What? No, never mind. Let's just get back to work.
I was working for a bubblegum machine. I mean, it was amazing, man.
Oh, but then there's that jerk Yeti, but I really do like that lollipop guy.
By the way, let's go ahead and watch King of Khan, you know, Fistful of Quarters. Yeah, I hate that guy. Imagine if he came to life. It's like a giant head.
Oh my god, yeah. No, but honestly, there is one more thing that I would like to mention about Close Enough. And this is just a little thing. I will admit, the girl in the pink shirt, she's actually really cute. I'm not gonna lie.
That's your thing, man.
I don't know about you, but that, like, I just gotta mention that. Like, I don't know, like, she got to me, like, in the trailer, but yeah.
Is she the wife of the main character?
No. That's the one with the reddish hair. No, it's like one of their roommates.
Okay, I didn't notice. Oh, you mean the one that's being voiced by the Rigby's girlfriend?
I think so. I don't know. Like, I mean, my source is from Cartoon Brew, and they didn't mention any of the specifics, like who would be voicing who. Like, they didn't.
Okay, I think I know what you're talking about. The roommate. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah, they didn't. Surprisingly enough, they didn't even mention when this is going to be released. They just say that this is going to be coming soon. So rather it be earlier this year or maybe in 2018. Yeah, just keep your eye out for Close Enough, the latest animated series from J.G. Quintel.
Super stoked.
Oh yeah, definitely. It does seem like a pretty interesting show. I might.
Or shall I say, super toked?
Probably. Maybe this could be one of the shows that, like, you can enhance the experience by joining in the smoke with them. Alright, but anyways, our next story that we have right over here, sadly, this is going to be another end of an era for a voice acting legend. Now, last year, we had a little bit of a tragedy when the legendary June Foray sadly passed away at the age of 99. May she rest in peace. Now, this is not as sad, though, with this news. Nobody died, really. It's just that someone...
Thank God!
Yeah. Oh, my God. Like, last week, I have to admit, it was a little bit overkill for me. It's like, it wasn't just June Foray, but when I also heard Marty Sklar also passed away, the legendary Disney Imagineer, like, that one, it feels like, okay, come on, please, one at a time. Let's not repeat 2016.
Even recently with live action guy, the guy who wrote Sam Shepard, dude. Have you seen the short video of Matthew McConaughey reacting to Sam Shepard's death?
Oh, no, I haven't seen it.
Well, long story short, like, on the red carpet interview tells him that, and he was close friends with him, and, like, catches his reaction to it. So I guess, my reaction to last week was just, like, Matthew McConaughey's reaction. Oh, god damn!
Oh, yeah.
Take a break.
Yeah, exactly. But, yeah, so what we are talking about, though, is going to be the retirement of the legendary casting and voice acting director, Andrea Romano.
Yep.
She has recently announced this week that she is immediately going to be retiring after 30 years of directing people on voice acting numerous of projects. And using my source here on the Collider, they stated that she has directed over 10,000 voice acting sessions with over 1,600 TV episodes,
Yeah.
more than 50 movies, and 20 different video games. And Andrea Romano even let out a statement stating, "I shall miss so many aspects of this industry, particularly the people I've worked on alongside, and all the fun that happened on both sides of the glass. From the bottom of my heart, I extend my sincere gratitude to every actor, producer, director, engineer, and colleague that has helped make this run so incredible. Doing this job, working with all these wonderful people, has been my ultimate blessing. I couldn't have hoped to spend the past 3 decades with a better group. I've truly been the luckiest person on earth." Now, for those of you who don't know who Andrea Romano is, chances are, if you're listening to this, then you have heard or you have seen a cartoon that would feature the directing talents of Andrea Romano.
The best way I could describe Andrea Romano is, if you could think of your favorite superhero in recent years, think of your favorite superhero, there's a good chance they have that voice thanks to Andrea Romano.
Yeah, and she pretty much started back in the 80s in Hanna-Barbera, actually, when she would do some directing works for stuff like the Jetsons and the Smurfs. And then later on, she would also do some of the biggest animated series in the 90s, including Animaniacs and also Batman the Animated Series. And even in the 2000s, she would really go big with Nickelodeon, doing shows like SpongeBob SquarePants and Avatar The Last Airbender. Now, I don't really have the time to really list all the stuff that she has done, but
it's
really,
long.
Yeah,
it is very long.
No, but
and, like,
she really is a treasure in terms of voice acting and in animation.
Yeah. I was going to say she was crucial for Warner Brothers. I mean, I know like a lot of the Warner Brothers animated series she worked on, and she has an influence when directors who haven't worked with her directly would take classes to know how to do voice acting. And I wrote down too, because I follow Jorge Gutierrez, one of my favorite directors and artists, not just directors, artists, who talked about, Andrea Romano's retirement and how he took a class with her. So even he, who hadn't worked directly with Andrea Romano, like on a project, has some great words for her.
Yeah. And that's exactly why she definitely left an impact when it comes to voice acting or how to direct voice acting. Because everybody nowadays immediately took a page off of her. I remember looking into the documentary I Know That Voice, and they would all mention how Andrea Romano really played a huge part throughout their career. How her, pretty much her directing skills really either improved upon their own talent, or it would sharpen up their directing skills for their projects. So she really is a seriously influential figure when it comes to animation. Like, she really did shape up at least the acting aspect.
It's not going to be too long before the Annies decide to make the Andrea Romano Recognition Award for Voice Talent.
that could be true,
Yeah.
Yeah, because like they already have an award for they have the special award for June Foray, so it could be possible that they would make a special like lifetime achievement voice acting dedicated to Andrea Romano. And honestly, as someone who is aspiring to get into voice acting, who is currently trying to get into a path of voice acting, Andrea Romano is the kind of person that I would wish to work with. Someone who would know what they're doing, and like, if you're going to be working with her, then there's a very good chance you're going to be in a path of success, that you're going to be going into something good when she will be in charge. And she does seem like the kind of person that would really want to get the best out of you, and also to have fun at the same time. So
Andrea Romano ditto pretty much everything you said.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't add anything else because she really is that great.
Yeah. She truly is such a great legend. And in a way, it's going to be a little bit sad that she has to go, but it's great at the same time, though, that she really made that huge of an influence. So at least we would have an idea of what it would be like to have Andrea Romano directing a voice acting session. So at least she made a really big impact to leave the industry in a rather positive manner. So that
on
is
top.
pretty good. Yeah, pretty much. So with all that said, we just want to say thank you so much, Andrea Romano, for the legendary work that you have done for us. And we just wish you the best on your retirement.
Mm-hmm. That's ditto.
Exactly. All right, so for our next story right over here, we're going to be talking about a little animated short, but it really blew up on the internet in a big way. I kid you not. This really became one of the biggest internet sensations this week. Like, the short itself actually just got released, and already it's, like, for a while now, it's actually the #2 trending video on YouTube. And,
it's still holding that title. That's good.
Oh, yeah. And on top of that, like, even beforehand, this really got some massive anticipation, and it really got some really big attention from
Well, I know they had
public.
the Kickstarter campaign, right?
Yeah. They did. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, it is the animated short called In a Heartbeat. Now, for those of you who don't know, allow me to just make a quick little explanation about it. In a Heartbeat is a 4-minute animated short that basically it's a little bit of a combination of some of the more recent Disney shorts like Inner Workings and Paperman. Where...
Not to be confused with In a Heartbeat, the Disney Channel live-action sitcom with EMS. Remember that one?
I have no, honestly. As a true Disney fan, I put my mind of Disney Channel on the side. I don't associate that with Disney.
It exists, people. Anytime I hear that title, In a Heartbeat, I think about like the theme song going, In a Heartbeat. Comment section. Let me know if you remember that show.
Oh, good God. Well, this is going to be the new thing that people will remember when it comes to In a Heartbeat.
Okay.
But here's the big thing why people really do remember this is that it actually has an LGBT theme, because this is just the story of a boy who has a crush on another boy. But then suddenly his heart escapes from his body, and the boy dies because he cannot function without his heart in his body. No, I'm just kidding. Basically, the heart comes out of it, and he's trying to go after the boy that he likes. And, well, I guess you got the little romance story going on from there. I'll let you go and see it. But to go in a little bit of details of what this is all about, believe it or not, guys, this isn't from any big studio or anything like that. This is actually a student thesis at the Ringling College of Arts and Design. This was actually crafted by Beth David and Ernesto Bravo. And like Joey stated, this actually had a Kickstarter campaign back in November, and they only asked for like $3,000, but because of the huge support that this animated short has gotten, they ended up getting a total of $14,000. And ever since then, it became a huge internet sensation. It became so viral, and it has already gathered such a huge fan base. Like, already you see tons of fan art going around. I'm already seeing people cosplaying as some of the characters. And yeah, that's basically the big thing with In a Heartbeat. It's the latest internet sensation. And let me just ask you, Joey, what did you think of the animated short?
You know, it's great because I actually wanted to do a Cartoon Palooza shorty on this. And when I first heard about it, I was a little worried because I didn't know much about the pre-production to it. But I was a little worried about hearing the concept, because when you take a concept or you take something that's a hot topic, some studios, you know, like Sony and the Emoji Movie, are going to want to sensationalize it or do it the wrong way. An example of this, and this may be a little controversial, but 13 Reasons Why came out, and it kind of sensationalized the idea of depression and suicide, and may have set the wrong example on how to do it. You know, just as someone who, if you guys didn't know, I have a background in psychology and counseling. So I was worried that the short was going to sensationalize it versus give an honest, genuine approach to something like, homosexual relations. But when I saw it, I was happy. I was satisfied, and it's just such a sweet, genuine short. I mean, like, if you're a student and you're in animation going in, this is going to be the short that's going to be talked about for a while, and it's great that it's a student short film because it's been a while since we've had a student animated short film gain this much traction. I think the only one that I could think about would be the one that, way back when John Lasseter won his Academy, Student Academy Awards, and that's John Lasseter. So that's saying a lot. There have probably been other ones that have been just as influential, but Ringling was always known for computer animation. So I think it's great that they have a short like this to really set themselves, as a school, kind of like what CalArts did. That's a whole other topic for another time. But what I can say is that I'm happy that as a creative person, as someone who's written, stories and narratives, and you can attest for this too, you're a creative person as well. How long has it been for them to finally make a short? We've seen Boy Meets Girl and Girl Meets Boy for God knows how long. How it's about time we finally got Boy Meets Boy and Girl Meets Girl. Like,
that's
actually so obvious.
Yeah, the real interesting thing is that I actually read at one point they were wanting to do the dull heterosexual love story of just Boy Meets Girl, but at the end of the day they ultimately decided, why not go do Boy Meets Boy? And you really are right there. I really do feel like this is such a sweet, simple animated short about Boy Meets Boy. And like I said before, like there is that direct comparison of Inner Workings and Paperman, but it does bring out that love story genuinely well. It does feel simple, like it really does manage to get the right tone correctly. Like you get a little bit of that comedy, a little bit of that drama, and like you do you do see the feelings between the two kids. Like it really is nice. But you're right, I really do agree that the way that they handled the LGBT themes right over here, they really did it in a way that is simple and that is very mature, but also family friendly, that people of all ages can look at this and that they can appreciate it as well, because they didn't go too far from it. Well, they didn't go too far with it, and that they didn't over exaggerate any of the gay aspects. Like not one of the characters would be going flamboyantly or anything like that. You like don't see any of the
like, ooh, yeah,
like you don't see any of the stereotypes coming from something like Sausage Party. Like they're just presented as people, and basically even if you just switch out one of the characters as a girl, like you pretty much get the same result. And I think that really is the beauty of how to portray a homosexual relationship. You just show them as people. Like if you can show it in a way that you can easily switch it out with one sex being the opposite, then you really nailed it, because overall, love is love, no matter what sex it is,
And that's the problem for, a lot of filmmakers recently, is that they forgot that. And I think it goes back to just a general gender study and a general study that's been going on for years, and this idea of alterity and the other. And sometimes filmmakers are burdened, or they're worried about something because they don't really understand what the other is. And it doesn't just apply to just gender orientation or sexual orientation, but it also applies to race. Sometimes filmmakers just don't know how to approach it, whereas in actuality they think so much about the fears that they tend to forget about the actuality. And it's just two people falling in love. Just tell a love story. It's that easy. And I think when you watch something and you get the moment where you're like, I wish I came up with that, you've made a good short. And it's simple, but simple doesn't have to be bad as long as you have a lot of good stuff behind it. And it's very well animated, very well rendered. And it's a simple story, but simple doesn't mean like it's lacking, intelligence. It's got a lot. It's a very short, poetic, and very well animated short. And that's why it works. And that's why I think, the internet's falling in love with it. And the best thing out of this is that if Hollywood studios can see that this is how you can make a short, you can make, a rom-com or make a romantic film featuring two homosexual characters, we can see, a future with, homosexual characters, a positive, outlook for it versus, falling upon fears and, as you mentioned before, the stereotypes of gay characters in film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like this pretty much did open up the possibilities of how it can work, and we have seen slowly but surely we are seeing more homosexual characters appearing in animated features, and even for mainstream family-friendly animated features. Like we've already got Paranorman, and we also got a little bit of How to Train Your Dragon 2, where Goldberg kind of came out of the closet a little bit when he mentioned it. Was like, I'll never understand that. Well, that's another reason.
And the funny thing about that, too, is I think, there's always the executive decision. I mean, I don't know what goes... We all don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but there's always a possibility that filmmakers want to get these ideas out there, but someone in the studio making the shots will be like, I don't know. That's, that's going to drive away, the audience. But, that's why it started off as small things, like in Paranorman and in How to Train Your Dragon. And then suddenly it's realizing, you know what, maybe we can, it's time. We can now feature, homosexual characters.
Yeah, I know, like, the only problem with it is that I understand nowadays, like, we're still going to get the backlash. Like, we're still going to get those idiotic homophobics that are going to be whining and complaining and all that stuff. But eventually, like, there will be a time when that won't be that much of an issue. Like, it'll still be there, but eventually there will be a time when the LGBT community will be accepted a lot more as people. They still have a long journey ahead of them in order to be fully accepted by the public, by everyone, both, like, no matter which side of the political spectrum that you're in. But but at least, like, they are, it's a path that is slowly but surely getting there. Like, for me personally, I do feel like this is the reason why it's going to be a long time until we're going to see a mainstream animated feature that will actually star a gay character. But at least we're going to go down into the right path into making it. Like, eventually we will make it there, and In a Heartbeat is actually a good first step. But
it is a good first step.
Yeah, but Joey, I'm going to ask you a question now that is probably going to make people hate us. Do you have any criticisms towards In a Heartbeat? Like, if there are any flaws that you want to point out, what would they be?
So, you know what? There's no such thing as the perfect short, and it's our job to point out when things are subjectively wrong and objectively wrong, because guess what? We gotta be the bearer of bad news, but someone's gotta be the bearer of bad news. But, when I was watching this, maybe I have to rewatch it again, but for me, I feel like all the flaws it could have had could have been avoided if it weren't a student film, but because these are made by students who are still learning their craft, I think these are things that will be fixed. The animation is kind of inconsistent at times, but that's something that is a student film. Like, it's kind of like a loaded criticism because it's going to be corrected for, because it's a student work. So I think people need to go into that mindset going into this. It's like, it's not going to be, a Pixar level animated short, because it's not a Pixar level animated short. In fact, because it is a student animated short, you can almost say that they're taking full advantage of what a studio that makes, like Splash Entertainment making Norm in the North is failing on. And they are a bigger studio than, say, a student coming out of an art school. So I think it's actually not just, it started off as a criticism, but actually works in its favor. Is that because this is a short film made by students who are still learning their craft, the fact that, they're still working and improving, and it's they're going in the right trajectory and in the right step. In fact, the only criticism I have is the animation, but that's because, like I said, a million times already, is that this is something that they're going to be working on. But as it is, just go in knowing that this isn't going to be a Pixar level animated short.
Yeah, honestly, I completely agree with you right there. That's my one little thing with this animated short. Now, there are a lot of aspects in the animation that do work. I really do like the designs, the backgrounds. They're simple, but they do work in their favor. It's just the character animation. It just feels a little bit rigidy. The movements are not necessarily as smooth. It's just like, it does need a little bit more work. But like you said, this is still a student project. And I've seen so much hype for it, though. That's the thing.
It's like a backhanded comment, too, because, like, it is something that they're going to be working on. And especially for guys who go into a program focusing on one type of animation. And because computer animation is a multi-step process, you're not going to get that fluid animation unless you focus on rigging. But maybe the guys working on this, calling the shots, were mostly doing modeling or doing textures. That's why that aspect is probably not going to be as big as the other one. But like we were saying, it's something that they're still learning the craft.
Yeah,
but and I agree.
They're students. They're still learning. At least they have that excuse. But like when you mentioned though that when you advise people don't come in expecting a Pixar film or anything like that, like that's probably the big thing they really need to people really need to emphasize, because I've seen so much hype for it, like people writing in so many clickbait titles going like, oh my god, this is animated Pixar. Short. Yeah, like, no joke. I've seen one saying like, this is as good as a Pixar short. Like they really want to go far by saying like, this is the best animated thing ever.
Really? Is it really as good as a Pixar? It's like, quality-wise, really coming out of the
quality
Pixar
of the animation, it's not. But writing-wise, like, it is as good as some of the mainstream shorts. Like, something that could come out as Disney. That, I will give them that, but animation-wise, it will need a little bit more work, but again, they're students, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're going to master their craft. At least we know that with the criticisms that we'll be giving, like, they are going to be working on it. They will be improving on it. So at least there is a good in there. So, overall, I would say that this is definitely a great short, and I highly recommend anyone go checking it out, and especially like if you're someone in the LGBTQ plus community, like this is going to be a #1 watch right over there. And my only advice is just don't go.
Too, you should watch this as well. If you're a creative person that wants to know good, simple storytelling, this is it.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want to, and this is also a great idea that if you want to incorporate some LGBTQ plus themes into your subject and you want to find a source outside of some of the Cartoon Network stuff like Steven Universe and Adventure Time, this would actually be a great idea. So yeah, I highly recommend checking it out.
I agree.
Yeah. Alright, so our next story right over here, interestingly enough, Joey, you mentioned not too long ago that one of your favorite directors and artists is actually Jorge Gutierrez.
Absolutely. I've been following his work. My first exposure to Jorge Gutierrez started when I watched El Tigre, and I was growing up and I was thinking like, ugh, it's bad because it's Flash animation. But then I turned on Nickelodeon one day and I saw El Tigre and I was floored. I was like, this is what Flash animation should be like. And it's funny that I say that because Jorge was one of the first pioneers for Flash animation with his other shorts. So after that, I started to learn more about his work. I learned about his, he and his wife, they collaborate on projects. I learned about how they worked at your favorite studio, Sony Pictures, when they were doing VFX for Stuart Little.
Well, that was a lot. Well, for Stuart Little?
he did.
Well, that was ImageWorks. Yeah. That was at ImageWorks. That ain't Sony Animation, though.
At ImageWorks, but it was Sony produced.
I actually like Stuart Little, believe it or not. So I don't mind. Like ImageWorks, I don't mind actually.
Yeah.
Like they can make some good stuff.
I want to drop that in there.
Of course, you want to drop it in there.
I want to drop that in there, guys.
I thought you already dropped it. Guys. I thought you already dropped it in right at the beginning with the whole emoji.
You gotta give me some credit, man. You gotta give me some credit because
all right. All right,
a little bit of a hall pass. Some exceptions.
Yeah, true. But interestingly enough, though, this is honestly a surprising thing for me because now he is going a little bit in a different direction with his directorial skills and with his artistry, where apparently Jorge Gutierrez is going to be a part of a Lego spin-off movie that is called The Billion Brick Race. Now, so far, we have no idea what this movie is about. We don't know if it has any direct connections with the Lego movie. All we know is that it's pretty much a project that was thought up by Jason Segel and Iron Man 3 writer Drew Pearce, in which the latter, it's pretty much all his idea. Like, this was the original plan that he wanted to do, so he teamed up with Jason Segel to think up of this idea. And so far, that's all that we know about it so far. I don't think they directly mentioned that Jorge Gutierrez is going to be the director of the Billion Brick Race. And just out of curiosity, what would you think this movie would be?
So before we talk about what the movie will be, I want to talk maybe about like what Jorge has been working on after Book of Life, because I feel like that impacts his involvement in this. So after he made Book of Life, the big project that he wanted to do with Real Effects was based on sci-fi, cowboy westerns, and believe it or not, political unrest in America dealing with immigration, and it was going to focus on the wall.
Yeah,
and,
pretty much, like a commentary on the U.S.-Mexico border.
Exactly, and using sci-fi, as sci-fi has been used for years, as like a commentary and allegory to real-life political unrest. And I was looking forward to that project. However, it's been announced that he's not going to be working with Real Effects anymore, and that I don't know what's going to happen to this project. He says, it's still happening, but I don't know if it's going to be happening at Real Effects. And for me, that's kind of heartbreaking, because I would like to see this project happen sooner, but it's probably just going to happen later on, along with the unfortunate passing of the, Gendy's Popeye. But apparently that's a mixed seller, mixed bag of salad.
I've already went into it in this podcast, and that's an entire different story right over there with the whole Popeye thing.
That's a whole different story. But long story short, I guess, in between projects, this is something that he has to do before going back to that one, which is Son of Jaguar, which is a VR project he's working on that's been catching a lot of buzz at SciGraph. I follow him on Twitter, so as you can tell, I really love this guy's work. True. And and this was announced, and it seems such like an afterthought. Even on Twitter, he was like, cat's out of the bag. I'm working on it. Like, it's like he spent all this time talking about this project and that project. Like, oh, by the way, I'm going to be working on a Lego movie. What?
Yeah, really.
I remember too, like he, did a mini review of the Lego Batman movie, talking about how he would like to be involved in this type of work, and like he loves the world that's involved with. My problem is that if he's going to be working on it, to make it a Jorge Gutierrez brand sort of thing, he's got a very, very distinct style. Like, I love what a Jorge Gutierrez. It's like a Mexican iconography mixed with traditional acrylic art, mixed with Fleischer style animation, Fleischer style design, and that's why I love his work. But in Lego, how you're going to be able to pull that all off can be interesting, because the world they have in the Lego movie, I don't know if you've noticed this too, is that the Lego movies that are coming out seems to be building upon this world, this sort of like Lego cinematic universe.
Yeah, a little bit.
It seems like a little bit with Ninjago and Batman taking place in this world of Lego, but there are also side stories that are happening within this grand, bigger picture, which it makes me think if this is even going to be connected to the Lego world and characters we've seen before. It probably would be something entirely different. It'll probably have, its own characters. I don't know. The way the title sounds like, it makes it sound like it's a mad, mad, mad world, but with Lego characters.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel at the same time. And when I heard that Jorge Gutierrez would be a part of this Lego project, honestly, it really is surprising for me, considering how he pretty much established himself. What I believe is pretty much Jorge Gutierrez is kind of like the Mexican ambassador in animation.
Yeah.
We're pretty much
it's funny. He pretty much is. And in a podcast I was listening to, he mentioned how studying animation in the U.S., he got a grant from Mexico to study, and that his idea is that he's representing creativity for Mexico in America. So like it's very great that you actually brought that up. So he kind of is like a Mexican ambassador for animation.
Yeah, and especially like when you look at his previous projects, whether it be like with El Tigre or the Book of Life, or even with with Son of Jaguar, like you could see that like he really does have this distinct style where like it really does breathe out Mexico, like whether it be through the designs, whether it be through the themes of the projects, whether it be the areas that it's in, like it's all surrounded on Mexico. But then you got the then like he is jumping in this Lego movie, which is pretty much a world that's already been built for him, so he has to work around that. And how he's going to go and do that, I don't know. And like you said, I definitely do agree. This does sound like this could be something like a it's a mad world where like everybody is on this one big race or something like that. And I wouldn't be surprised if this would be a little bit like in the tone of the Lego movie, where you see a whole bunch of pop culture characters coming up to be involved in this big race. So,
not to be confused with the other big race movie, Mad Max Fury Road. Now, if they decide to make the Lego movie version of Mad Max Fury Road, directed by Jorge Gutierrez, sign me up.
Actually, that wouldn't be too far-fetched, considering that, like, I think Mad Max is Warner Brothers. So it could be possible they could add some cameos into it, like you suddenly see Mad Max or Immortal Joe. Like, that wouldn't be too far off. I can legitimately...
Where's my pieces? I want my 2x2 brick pieces.
Oh my god. Oh man, what's the outer world like? What do they call the reality world?
Oh, in
the
I just know they just call like I forgot what they called that. Yeah.
What was it, like the Great Beyond or something like that?
Oh, that's Sausage Party. Now the Sausage Party Lego movie combination.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's
like,
not even greenlit yet. But
yeah, maybe. Like all I can see is just Immortal Joe going, "You will go to the great beyond, shiny and chrome. You will go to the great beyond, shiny and chrome."
May you ride into Valhalla with your Batman custom built picks, shiny and chrome.
Oh my god. But that is one thing that I can see Jorge Gutierrez deliver on this is going to be the comedy. Like, you can definitely tell, like, in his previous projects, the comedy does seem to be a little bit more in line with the Lego movie. So
and old school. Very old school slapstick.
School. Yeah, old school, exactly. So he would probably feel right at home on that aspect.
Yeah.
But, considering that I'm sure this is way early in development, we don't know when that's going to be released. And I mean, like, chances are it's going to be in the 2020s, considering that they've already set the Lego Movie sequel for 2019. So we might not hear this for a while, and who knows, maybe during this time, like, Jorge Gutierrez is going to be working on that a little bit, and then he could be probably going back to Real Effects to work on some of those projects as well to finish off Kung Fu Space Punch. And, like, I remember he even mentioned that he would be in the early stages of Book of Life 2, so who knows how that's going to go.
The funny thing about Book of Life 2, and I don't want to make too long focusing on this topic, is that he saw fan art of a Book of Life 2, and he actually, like, it was like, sign me up on that concept.
He actually made that. I know which one you're talking about. I think he actually made that with his wife and the art director of that movie.
He made that one. I thought it was a fan who made that.
No. Like, he made that for this special event where you can make mock posters of sequels that don't exist.
Oh, okay, that actually makes more sense. Yeah. But still, I was like, I saw that poster, I was like, I want to see that movie.
Yeah, same here. That looks awesome.
It does. And, before we go too long, one thing I want to end off, and you brought it up earlier, is how with Jorge Gutierrez, a lot of people don't think about this installation he did a really long time ago. This is how nerdy I'm getting here. But he did an installation on video game art. And he brought his style and his brand of artwork to Donkey Kong. And there's this painting I may have shared it I may have put it in my review of a Book of Life promo. He's able to work within the limitations of a specific style that's already set, but still bring his own work into it Now it's just a painting and not, $150 million movie project, but still, that is a challenge that I think, as we're both pointing out, is a challenge well accepted.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing with Jorge Gutierrez. I don't just admire him as a director. Like, he's also a fantastic artist. Like,
Amazing.
he has done some stuff that I would legit consider buying. Like, if he puts his stuff available online.
And it's acrylic, and acrylic is a hard medium. And in fact, I have a hard time with acrylic, but I'm the more and more I work at it, it does come. But it's one of those mediums that's I applaud him that he works in acrylic.
But yeah, basically. But whatever the project may be, like, all we can do now is just wish Jorge the best of luck with this Lego project and see how it goes from there.
Yeah.
All right, so finally, we are now going to end things off with Animat's pick of the week right now.
Ooh.
And this is a pretty interesting story. Now, this is honestly a topic that I've already covered a little bit. Maybe I've done it in my podcast, but I know I've talked about this in one of my videos. Like, I pretty much made an entire editorial on this. It's actually been a year ago, actually. Holy crap, I just realized. But yeah, this is basically talking about the power of Rotten Tomatoes and the impact that it would have when a movie would have a fresh rating or especially a rotten rating. And the reason why this subject is really brought up is actually because of the Emoji Movie, where despite getting abysmal reviews, at the box office, it actually made about half of its budget, around $24 million. And even the president of worldwide marketing and distribution of Sony Pictures actually stated that the Emoji Movie was built for people under 18, which honestly, I gotta say, that is a lie, because the Emoji Movie is built for people under 8.
Yeah,
I cannot imagine a freaking teenager enjoying the hell out of the Emoji Movie. Like, there's no way. Anyways, who gave it an A- cinema score, so we wanted to give the movie its best chance. And then would go on to say, what other wide release with a score under 8% that has opened north of 20 million? I don't think there is one. And I'm sorry to bring this up, but I just gotta mention, that little quote right there, does that not sound like a Donald Trump thing to say?
It does seem like a very backhanded.
Yeah, like
it's pretty much the argument that a lot of people who like Suicide Squad and BVS, what minority of people have, are like, well, I paid to go see it, so screw the critics.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty, honestly, let me just reread that. Like, what other wide release with a score under 8% has opened north of $20 million? I don't think there is one. There's
a lot of money. It's huge.
Like, it made huge money.
Huge profits.
Yeah, huge. But the biggest reason why it actually managed to do that it made almost half of its budget, is basically this one strategy that Sony Pictures actually made. They knew that this movie is bad. So what they did is that they didn't let out the reviews, they didn't put up the reviews online until the very last minute. Like, just the day before it is when critics actually saw the movie and they finally put out their reviews.
And the funny thing about that, too, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the funny thing about that, too, is that they don't just do it for all the bad films. Like, I know Ghostbusters is a mediocre film, but it didn't have a negative Rotten Tomatoes score. But they also used that tactic for Ghostbusters as well. And it actually attests for the fact that a lot of people thought that Sony Pictures was paying the critics off to give positive word to Ghostbusters, when in actuality they're just holding off a longer embargo.
Yeah, but very interestingly enough, though, they didn't just do it with the Emoji Movie. This week, they legit did the exact same thing with The Dark Tower. I don't know if you've
Dark
noticed
Tower,
that.
Yeah. I know. I was just going to bring that up as well, Mike, and that point as well, is that they don't just do this for bad. They do it for all the Sony projects. Like, I can't remember like a time when they did an early release, an early review for a Sony movie.
Really?
And, it doesn't
even for Spider-Man: Homecoming?
Oh no, that's see, the thing about that, though, and this is the agreement between Marvel and Sony, is that Marvel has control of creative rights. And I was actually reading, I don't know how true this is, but Spider-Man: Homecoming is primarily a Marvel Studios project, and they're actually making most No, I actually got that wrong. It's so confusing, but because Marvel Studios is involved, that's why they did something different. And I still think they even held on to the embargo longer than they normally do, and I think Marvel had a hand in that as well.
Okay, that does make sense. Like that was one thing I would be wondering, is that how is it that they're going to, how is Sony and Marvel going to split the profits, or is there one that's going to get more than the other? Like, I'm sure that's another complicated story. But
and they also do the same thing with James Bond as well, since MGM and United Artists work with James Bond.
And I did actually hear that at the end of the day, like, even if some of the last movies like Skyfall and Spectre were huge, Sony really didn't make that much money out of it, from what I've heard. They only made like what, around $30 million or something like that. Like,
probably just went back to the broccoli estate. I love saying that, broccoli estate.
Yeah, pretty much.
The broccoli's own Bond.
But yeah, basically. But this article on the Hollywood Reporter, they would bring this up, and they mentioned about the power of Rotten Tomatoes, and that as time would pass on, like, it really does make a huge impact. It's pretty much getting so much power that the fresh and rotten score would seriously determine if a movie would become a flop or a hit in the long run. And one of the biggest reasons is actually when Rotten Tomatoes would end up being bought by Fandango, and then Fandango would present their they would pretty much present the Rotten Tomatoes score next to the movie when you would go buy a ticket, pretty much stating that, hey, you want to go check out this movie? Well, just to let you know, like, this percentage of critics actually liked it. Excuse me. Or, like, the minority of critics liked it, so are you sure you want to buy your ticket? And then, like, eventually down the road, there would be other companies that would do the same thing. Like, apparently it's stated that AMC would do the same thing as well. Like, but with AMC, it's actually a little bit different, because they only present the ones that are fresh. Pretty much only promoting.
I don't like that, though. I, as a moviegoer, I don't like that process. I think reviews should come off of... I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not crazy about that, but I'm still thinking about it as you're saying that, because that's the first time I've heard about that. But go on.
yeah. Actually, let me just read you the little thing that mentioned it. It stated, more recently, some studios were taken aback when AMC Theaters, the country's largest chain, adopted the same practice of its own ticketing website. AMC's site now only features a score if it's fresh, defined as anything 60% and above. The Mega Circuit declined to comment.
So are you saying they encourage users to buy tickets for movies if they have fresh ratings?
Basically, that's kind of the big thing right now. Because that's apparently the mentality that people are having now that Rotten Tomatoes is being a lot more present. And pretty much, like, studios are starting to realize that if a movie would get a rotten rating, then consequences would actually be dire.
Well, how is that going to work for movies in general that aren't trying to be good movies? How's that going to work for B movies? How's that going to work for independent films? How's that going to work for art house films that don't really have an audience? This has a lot of ramifications.
That is true. That is actually a lot of specific. That's honestly a lot of specifics, but I think that they're pretty much going more for, like, the big name movies. Like, they're pretty much tackling more into that aspect right there. Because keep in mind, like, we're talking about, like, Fandango and AMC Theaters. Like, you don't really see them distributing a lot of, like, small indie films or small limited release films.
Well, and when they usually do, I know I'm a proud Stubbs member who needs to renew his Stubbs card soon. But as a AMC moviegoer, they do occasionally have what they call like little festivals, or like they have a string of movies with the same theme for certain days. Not like a Fathom event, but it's specific to AMC, where they'll try to get some. It was the only way I was able to see The Wind Rises, actually, a couple of years ago. Okay. AMC was the only chain to put out The Wind Rises, to my knowledge.
Yeah. But yeah, basically this whole article is pretty much stating that nowadays we live in an age where Rotten Tomatoes seems to be more and more of a powerhouse that would determine if a movie would be a hit and a flop. And studios nowadays, they're trying to figure out ways to avoid Rotten Tomatoes, that if their movie does suck, they don't want to be seriously affected by Rotten Tomatoes in order to lose money and stuff like that. But at the same time, it also mentioned a little bit about when a movie would get a fresh rating. And I think it's actually Stefan, aka Mr. Coat, actually said it best on Twitter that this is the biggest hypocrisy of Hollywood, where that they're trying so hard to avoid all the they're trying to avoid all the negative press, like what Sony is doing with both Dark Tower and the Emoji Movie, but they would not be shy. They would brag about whenever a film would get a certified fresh. Like, honestly, more and more, I am seeing a lot of Blu-ray and DVD covers present that they're pretty much presenting that this movie would have a certified fresh score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, I mean, that was the only way I would determine. It's funny. I would always play a game growing up and be like, how many bad movies are going to include the little critical blurbs? And, I noticed all the really bad movies did not include a lot of critical blurbs, or if they did, they were on the back of the DVD box and never on the front. Yeah. And case in point, the Ang Lee's Hulk, which I loved, minority, one of 5 people that loved that, and they didn't put their reviews up on the front of the DVD box.
Yeah, basically. No, but like honestly, I do feel like with the whole certified fresh thing, I feel like we're at the point where it's starting to get a little bit ridiculous, because I'm starting to see that on old movies. Disney is putting the certified fresh thing on their covers of Bambi. Like, for God's sake, that movie is from the 1940s. What does Rotten Tomatoes? Yeah, exactly.
You don't need it.
It's a classic. Everybody knows it's good. Why do you need the certified fresh thing on Rotten Tomatoes?
I mean, you already got Leonard Maltin's face doing introductions for it. Like, why? It's on top of extra stuff. I don't know. That's too extra.
But honestly, like, the whole reason why this is going on, personally, I feel like this is mainly because we live on the age of the internet, where people do not want their information now, they want their information yesterday. And people are growing a little bit more impatient, and right when they would hear when a project would be announced, rather it would be released, like, even later, like in frickin' 2022 or something like that, they want to know immediately, like, who's going to be in it, what the story is about, and is it going to be good or bad. Like, they really want to have their information as soon as possible before the movie would even be out. They want to judge the movie before even the movie would be released in the first place.
That's a problem, though, and I think if it's going to affect... See, the biggest problem I get out of this is that Rotten Tomatoes is an aggregate, and you mentioned this on your editorial as well. It's an aggregate of positive to negative reviews. But what people fail to understand is that the positive reviews or even the negative reviews would either be like a bordering criticism, a D or a 3 out of 5. Those sometimes, per the the critic's choice, would decide if it gets the rotten or if it gets the positive. The thing is that that's going off of their initial screening of the movie. And these critics get paid to watch a new movie like 5-10 movies a week. So their initial criticism based on a bordering review like that's a middle of the road movie, can bite them in the butt in the future if they watch it again and realize, oh man, maybe second time I should have went up. But the fact that they got to go for that immediate movement, it becomes fact, and it's very hard to go back and change that, so that when you make it negative, it's going to stay negative. That's why I think people are failing to understand that, because this is subjectivity versus objectivity, trying to make what's subjective into an objective fact, and it's the part of the news thing. It's part of, I want to get my stuff out now. I want to know, like, right now. That I think Rotten Tomatoes is probably going to have to undergo a change. And I don't know, man. It seems like a big mess. Even the fact that I don't know what else to say.
No, I understand what you mean, man. It's just that like, one of my biggest problems with Rotten Tomatoes is the way that people would end up reading it, and they're not reading it in the correct way. Sometimes we
experience this too. Like, it's like, so we get a commenter that's going to say, seal the garbage, seal the garbage. It's like,
oh my God,
you want to listen to anything else I got to say?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You want to hear the things I talk about in my video? No, just give it a rating. That's all that matters. Like,
yeah. I actually do end up getting people, like, who would just tell me, like, all they want to know is just the rating and that's it and stuff like that. And but the thing is with Rotten Tomatoes is that some people would incorrectly read what the tomato meter would mean. Like if they see a movie that would be 90% or just 20%, like that 90%, that doesn't mean that it's 90% good. That means that 90% of critics liked it. Like it could end up being like a mediocre film and everybody gave it like a 3 out of 5, and it could be
like The Dark Knight Rises, which I think still holds an 85%, but everybody looking back on it always says that that's the lesser of the Dark Knight movies, and if you had to skip one of them, it would be The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, and you actually brought a good example with Ghostbusters. Like that one actually has certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's like in the high 70s. But everybody is pretty much saying that it's more of a mediocre film. Like it's not
C-,
it's not
B+.
really that it's not really that bad, but it's not that much of a good movie either. So that's why it does seem a little bit confusing. And honestly, like it can really backfire because oftentimes than not, like it really does get annoying when someone tries to bring up Rotten Tomatoes as an argument, like trying to say like, well, if you say that about a movie, then why does Rotten Tomatoes say that it has this much percentage? It's like really like how do you really what kind of argument can you make about that? It just
whatever happened to arguing with somebody said, well, this person said this, and he discussed the themes, and he discussed like the type of filmmaking that went to discussing. No, review.
Yeah,
nope.
Because
rating. Boom.
Yeah,
That's
pretty much. Like they just want to bring up. Yeah, like they just want to bring up like the big overall thing. Like Rotten Tomatoes people believe like Rotten Tomatoes speak for all critics in a way.
Yeah. It's funny you say that too, because I think the best example I can think of right now is an interview the director of Kong Skull Island had, where he was part of a panel in Comic-Con where he was paired off with, I guess, a very negative critic of the movie, and he just had a chance to listen to what he had to say and, just discuss the movie. However, it wasn't so much a discussion, it was just, no, I hated it. And just bringing up half points is like, wait, whatever happened to the day of discussing subtlety, nuance, filmmaking versus just going straight for a gut reaction of I like it or I don't like it, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the problem people have these days when interpreting, movies. It's like, it's good, it's bad, end of story. It's like, that's not our job. Our job is to discuss movies and give it its day in court. And I think a lot of people appreciated what I had to say about the Emoji Movie, even though, spoilers, I hated it. I actually went in to talk about what it had and why it could have worked versus why it did at the end of the day. It didn't work. It didn't work.
Yeah.
And the fact that even the people in charge at Sony, like this guy saying, well, you know what? We made money despite, getting negative reviews. I mean, how you... It's like, it is a sad fact that, you're going to get people who love movies, who want to discuss subtlety and want to discuss nuance versus people that are just going to be like, gut reaction. I hate it or I like it. That's it.
Exactly. Well, unfortunately, with all that said, I got to go and wrap this up right now.
Yeah.
So, Joey, could you mind explaining to the audience where they can find you? If they really enjoyed the aspect of you, where is it that they can find you on the internet?
So, if you could find me on the internet, I also have another YouTube review series that, your fan here, Animat, my fan here, Animat here, we do occasionally make videos together. You can find them on Joey T Cartoon P, the Cartoon Palooza, which is on YouTube. And if you'd like to see some other work I do, I recently started a webcomic on Line Webtoon, and it's going to be updating weekly from Thursdays, Sundays, and Tuesdays. I put up the first strip yesterday. It's called Dawn of the Laughs, and it's imagine Garfield with zombies. Ooh. So if you go on LineToon, it's under most of everything on Twitter and Facebook is with my username handles TEDZEY. I'll put links below in the description as well with Animat. But it's a web series, web cartoon I'm working on that's pretty much, Garfield. It's pretty much what I described. It's Garfield, except he's dead, Therefore, it must be like Garfield after the 2000s.
Yeah, basically. And with all that said, that is all I've got for this week. So thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Animation Podcast. You can find more of my work at film-book.com. Just search for Mathieu Brunet or the Animation Podcast. You can also find me on my Twitter at Animat505. Now, if you have listened to this podcast on iTunes or any other podcast service, do you mind doing us a little favor? Just go and rate and review this episode. That would be very nice of you. But if you are listening to this podcast on YouTube, then hit that little like button in our video and leave us on a comment on your thoughts about the news this week. Tune in next week for the latest episode of the Animation Podcast and all things animation. Thank you guys so much for listening. And until next week, see you later, dudes!